We are so excited to have you here today. Let's get started. Who or what inspired you to pursue studies and a career in STEM?
Yeah, so growing up, I always loved creating and building things. And I loved art and taking every school project I did to the next level. So if I was supposed to do something like write a report on how alternative energy could be used, I would end up coming into school with a giant popsicle stick replica, like with a little solar panel, little windmill. I just love to find anything I could do to go to the next level. And my parents really saw that I had this passion for creativity and innovation, and they encouraged me to pursue STEM. And they signed me up for some summer camps when I was in high school at different universities. So there I would be building a circuit, for example. And when I would plug in all of the components and a light would turn on, I would just feel so powerful. And I never felt that way with really anything else I was doing. So I realized that there is no better career for me than STEM.
What is an obstacle that you encountered in your STEM field and how did you overcome it?
Mhm. Yeah, so I think one thing that's really important to remember is that um, not everybody is going to have the exact same experiences as a woman in STEM, and the world is changing rapidly. So the challenges I faced might be very different than the women who have been pioneering for women's education and women's rights. But one thing that I definitely noticed was, and I still feel it here and there today, but I remember feeling it first in college, was some people, and of course not everyone, they'll associate your accomplishments sometimes with luck, or somehow it was just easier for you to do something than everybody else. um, so instead of saying, wow, that person must have worked really hard to get that A on a test, people might say, what was the catch? And that definitely happened to me in college a couple times. I remember I got a 92% on an electronics test, and usually I would get maybe sometimes in the middle of the pack, but this time I just was so excited that I just rocked it. And I remember the first person came up to me and they said, like, wow, did you just have like every problem on your formula sheet that you brought? And I kind of took a step back and just realized, why are you assuming that it was something besides that I just worked hard? Um, but the good thing is that that whole experience now has a word, and it's called unconscious bias. And a lot of people are now getting more aware of the biases they have. But, if you're not aware, if I didn't understand that there was a whole thing about unconscious bias, my success or my accomplishment on that test was a little bit deflated. So I just think that whole experience has taught me a lot about surround yourself with people that believe in you. Don't be afraid to ask someone, hey, like, why would you ask me that question? Because it helps them uncover their biases. But in the end, just make sure that you know that you're working hard, you're smart, and don't let anyone else reduce your accomplishments in any way.
What strengths have you found being a woman in STEM?
So I think a strength is that you automatically have a presence in every room that you walk into. So, you've probably heard a lot of times people will say things like, oh, I was one of 6 women in the room or 6 women in the class. And when you're one of a few women in the room, people notice you. And this spotlight could be a double-edged sword because you might not feel comfortable with people always noticing you, or you feel like you have to perform. But I felt like it forced me to be a leader because people are watching and I didn't want to be passive. So I love the quote, the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. And so that means if you witness something happening that you don't necessarily agree with, but you don't say anything, you're perpetuating or supporting that whatever happened. Um, so I guess a quick example I can share is I went to a conference and I realized there were over 30 speakers, but not one was a woman. And I remember thinking, like, wow, that's kind of crazy. But then realizing, wait, I'm kind of partially to blame for this, though, because I'm sitting here in the audience. I didn't even volunteer to speak. So I stepped out of the session and said, and went to my computer, emailed the conference director for the conference I would be attending next time, And I said, like, I want to speak. Did anyone drop out? And surprisingly enough, they said, sure, you can speak. And I invited another woman to speak with me. So I guess that whole story kind of sums up that if I wasn't used to having that spotlight on me, and if I wasn't used to being one of the few women in the room, that I need to drive the change myself if I want to see the change, I might not be that same person I am today.
What advice would you give to young women interested in pursuing STEM careers?
So I think the best piece of advice is definitely just to surround yourself with people that believe in you and will tell you that you can do anything. So I've realized in different experiences throughout my career that most of my success and willingness to take risks is because I know when I'm going to fall or when I'm going to fail, I have a huge support system there to catch me. And kind of just like I mentioned before with the conference story, when I volunteered to speak at this conference, kind of impulsively, I then had to go back to my employer and say, hey, I did this. Are we okay with this? And I felt comfortable taking that risk though, because I knew that they believed in me and I knew they supported me. So it's important to note, I would say as well, that not all women are going to have that same experience. Some people are going to be growing up with families or friends that say, why would you want to study STEM? Why would you want to be an engineer? Are you sure you can do that? And I think that's especially why it's so important for women to support other women, because there's too many naysayers out there saying you can't do this. Like, we want to be the ones that say you can.
What do you see for the future of women in STEM?
So I definitely see a lot of new services and products that serve a more diverse audience. Um, we all know, right? Diversity is so important on teams. And if you only have one type of person trying to build a product, that product will not meet the needs of all people. And it's not really because those people are inconsiderate or because they have a limited understanding, or the reason it's, sorry. So it's not because those people are being inconsiderate, like I mentioned, but it's really that limited perspective that they have on all use cases. So one thing that I think about a lot is my younger sister is left-handed, and she always complains that scissors are designed for right-handed people. I never really thought of this before because I grab scissors and just use them. But this is a perfect example, right? If you don't have someone maybe left-handed in the room, people might not even ever realize that that is a problem. So again, I know diversity is much bigger than what hand you use to write, but everybody is talking about how diversity is so important right now. And I think it's important, again, not to just have a group of diverse people, but to empower those people to use their voices and share their own unique opinions to drive change. So I see a really bright future for women in STEM. I encourage everyone to use their voice and speak up when they have an idea, because really, I think that's that unique, valuable perspective that women in STEM are bringing to every team.
Thank you so much for taking the time to discuss your experiences in STEM. Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, we are done recording.